This is Kristy Carter with Traffic Planning and Design. We are the lead firm working with the city on the Close the Gap process, and today we want to welcome you to the City of Asheville's Close the Gap Community Update. A little over a year ago, the City of Asheville kicked off the Close the Gap planning process. As a reminder, Close the Gap is the city's effort to update its Greenway, ADA transition, and pedestrian plans to improve walking conditions across the city. We'll quickly review what is included in each plan before we provide an overview of what we've been up to and what the community can expect next. First, let's talk about the Greenway Plan update. Our primary Greenway tasks include updating the planned Greenway network, prioritizing projects within the network, and developing design standards and policy recommendations, as well as creating a structure for natural surface trails. The resulting plan will guide the city's Greenway investments in the coming years. The aim of the ADA Transition Plan, which is required by federal law, is to develop a plan to fix existing sidewalks and crosswalks that do not meet ADA accessibility standards. The ADA Transition Plan will be delivered in two components: identification of what needs fixing in order of priority, and strategies to make the needed fixes. The Pedestrian Plan will identify and prioritize areas that are without sidewalks, and the plan also includes policy and design recommendations. Now that we've recapped Close the Gap, let's talk a little bit about what we've been up to. The COVID-19 pandemic, which ramped up right as we planned to begin community engagement, caused us to rethink how to move forward. As a result, our ability to engage face-to-face with community members and to attend community events was very limited. Yet, we have been able to hit a number of key milestones. Some of our key milestones include a wide variety of data analysis, focus group interviews, training sessions, crash analysis, and policy review are a few of the tasks we have completed since beginning our work. We also launched a public media campaign to bring attention to our network and to encourage people to engage in our public survey. Additionally, we developed tools such as these story maps highlighted here to help the community learn more about our work. And speaking of the survey, we're going to spend the next few minutes sharing a few of the results. We had two surveys, the General Close the Gap survey and the ADA Transition Plan survey, which was geared toward those with disabilities. Overall, we had around 1,800 participants. The demographics of the survey participants generally reflect the demographics of our city. Over the next set of slides, we'll provide you with some key survey highlights. And as a side note, this presentation will be available for download if you want to spend more time reviewing the results. First, I'll mention some results from the General Gap survey. We asked people what they would do if they were in charge of the city's Greenway and pedestrian programs. Top ranked responses include connecting major greenways, adding missing sidewalks, and creating more neighborhood greenway connections. One thing we learned is that people don't have a strong preference for what type of greenway facility they want. What people want more than anything are more and better greenways. On the pedestrian side of things, we heard a lot about people wanting to feel safe at intersections. And it's no surprise that people like direct and complete sidewalk networks and don't like areas with missing sidewalks or significant gaps. People also expressed a willingness to accept a small property tax increase to fund pedestrian and greenway projects. The amount people seem to be willing to accept is around 1.5 pennies. And finally, we found that there is a lot of support for the plan's natural surface trail concept. Now let's look at a few results from the ADA survey. People who responded had a variety of disabilities that restrict mobility, such as walking, moving, and vision impairments. A large percentage of survey takers report using a motorized form of transportation, such as a car, when they would like to walk or roll, but barriers in the pedestrian network prevent them from doing so. Things that are important to those with disabilities include on-street parking, sidewalks, access to bus stops, street crossings, and curb ramps. And folks told us that priority areas to access include public places, shopping areas, and transit stops. And the barriers they face include narrow sidewalks, and particularly those with obstacles, sidewalks in poor condition, and missing curb ramps. Finally, many of the comments we received echo what we have just shared. Overall, the message received is the need for the city to focus on accessible routes for people with disabilities. Now let's shift to our analysis work. We went through a process to identify key destinations such as schools, homeless shelters, subsidized housing, and the like, and developed what we are calling a destination score for each roadway in the city. A higher destination score means that the road is an important link in our pedestrian network because it is close to many places people need to reach. Here we have maps for city roads and NCDOT roads. Equity is an important city value, so in addition to our destination score, we developed an equity score to identify areas of the city that score highest using our equity indicators, such as median income, the percentage of people living in poverty, and people above 65 or people with disabilities. Then we combined destination plus equity to identify hotspots to guide our prioritization efforts, which is the next phase of our process. I'll share an example of how we'll use this scoring and other factors that we'll consider. And here on this map, you can see that the brighter areas are those hotspots, and those we will look to first for prioritization. Next, we'll go into an example of how we'll use that scoring and other factors to help with our prioritization process. The scoring and other factors, such as speed, traffic volume, and crash history, help us identify hotspots or priority areas to develop projects, both greenways and existing and new sidewalks. For example, let's look at Livingston Street, south of downtown and near the River Arts District. From our analysis, Livingston Street shows up as a hotspot, and when we field check that area, we notice gaps in the sidewalk network as shown by the red lines on the map pictured at the bottom. On the left side of the picture at the top is a narrow sidewalk that is not ADA accessible. On the right side of the picture is a gap in the sidewalk network. We also know that the area has a troubling bicycle and pedestrian crash history, and while the speed limit is posted at 25 miles an hour, the design of the road allows cars to travel much faster. Through our public input process, we learned that people have concerns about the Livingston Street area also, and that information will factor into our analysis. We will also look at conditions along the street. For example, we know that Livingston Street has utility poles, steep banks, and buildings close to the roadway, all of which add challenges to closing the gaps. Since the area has challenges, a project along Livingston may not mean an end-to-end sidewalk. It may mean smaller safety improvements, crossing enhancements, and other strategies. Of course, all of this would be informed by community engagement. In some cases, a sidewalk may not be the best strategy. We'll also be looking at how to fill connection gaps with different types of greenways. For example, the Nasty Branch Greenway in the Livingston area will serve as a new connection once constructed. We know this is a lot to take in, but we wanted to give the community an update as we gear up for community meetings in late May to early June. Between now and then, we'll continue working on project development. When we come to the community in a few weeks, we'll ask you to weigh in on the projects and help us with the first round of prioritization. In the meantime, you can visit the city's page listed here to download this overview, access the story maps, and other materials, and contact Lucy Crown or Barb Mee. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you in the spring.